Well, welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house barrage, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello, and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and, well, what another fucking week that was. I mean, I have to say, it was just such an impressive feat of negotiating and fifth-dimensional chess, how the Democrats agreed to give up the one bit of leverage that they had managed to actually use for 5 seconds and end the shutdown in exchange for, let me check, sweet fuck all. I mean, that was really something. I mean, it's really actually useful in a sense. These things are clarifying. And one of the things I've noticed is it has actually, even in places that I wouldn't necessarily expect to hear it, there have been people pointing out that, yeah, actually, this wasn't just 8 people who just happened to decide to vote to end the thing in exchange for nothing. This was basically the party had decided that they were just going to completely sell out everybody who still believed that they weren't going to do that. And that's clarifying. It's actually, I mean, in a sense, it is quite good for people to see that, because the only way that this struggle ever actually goes anywhere is if people see who's on what side. You have to actually know who's going to have your back and who isn't. Otherwise, you make bad strategic decisions, and I think, in a sense, this will probably help people make good strategic decisions, because often getting screwed over really badly does have that effect in the long run. It sucks in the it sucks in the short run, and often in further additional runs. We only really have a long run. You never hear about a medium run. But it can at least help make better strategic decisions in the future and realize who not to count on. I am going to be doing another orienteering thing tomorrow, so I won't be doing the afternoon stream, the hyperpolyglotting stream. Decided to get in as much of that as possible while the weather's still nice before it ends up becoming totally frigid, since we didn't get to do a whole lot of it when it was utterly baking out. And in that context, one thing I have noticed as I've been trying to learn stuff related to, orienteering and just land navigation and stuff like that, is that there is really a need for some leftist content creators in that particular online space on YouTube. Because, the stuff that you get when you look up, even just stuff like use a topographical map and compass and stuff like that, basic skills. There's some good channels out there that, as far as I can tell, are not run by just like shit-eating reactionaries, but a lot of them, you get people like this Garand Thumb, which is apparently, his channel is named after a condition that you can get if you jam your thumb in a particular type of rifle. And he manages to dog whistle with the best of them. Somehow, you know, he'll be doing a thing on like tactical land navigation or some shit like that. And he clearly, I mean, his background indicates he does know what the hell he's talking about. But then that you hear him dog whistling about, oh, well, here's a trick the Rhodesians used to use. And it's like, wow, that's an interesting choice. That's a very interesting choice right there, because first of all, I mean, the thing about the Rhodesians as a source of strategic and tactical lessons is that they did get their asses kicked. And the other thing is that they're big fucking white supremacists, and about the only people who give a shit about the Rhodesians are also fucking white supremacists. So like, that's very mask off of you, and you get a lot of that. The Zone, in, you know, if you look this sort of thing up, the Zone is pretty well flooded with people who are with like reactionaries. And the thing is, it's actually made worse by the fact that a lot of these reactionaries do actually seem to know a thing or two about what they're talking about, because that will be validating. You know, it will function as part of sort of a reactionary propaganda pipeline kind of situation. And so it seems to me like this is someplace it would be just good to have like some comrades making these kinds of videos. I mean, we definitely have people in our circles who know stuff about this. It would be nice to turn one of these things on, and when they're explaining how to north in your compass, go, okay, and this is what some people like to call this raising the red flag of victory. I like to call it putting Red Fred on the trade union executive board. Or, this is a trick that they taught me when I was in Rojava, or something like that, you know. It would be not, as opposed to, yeah, so here's what the Rhodesians used to do. Like, you know, nothing dodgy there. I mean, like, this would be something like anti-war, you know, you have, like, anti-war vets, like, people who, like, got out of the military, realized they never should have been in it because they were on the wrong side of the history, but they know stuff. Like, I mean, like that Greg Stoker, actually, who has kind of put that knowledge at, you know, at the service of the struggle, and he's done it very usefully in, you know, his analysis of what's going on with the resistance in Palestine and Lebanon and stuff like that. And if people like that were to get into making this sort of content as well, just this sort of practical content, so that it wasn't just reactionaries just controlling that entire space, I think that would be a very good thing. I mean, I would do it, except I don't know shit about it. I'm just learning it myself. Like, I can kind of use a compass fairly effectively, and, you know, I'm decent with maps and stuff. But I'm not somebody to be taking advice from on these things. So, yeah, that was just a thought that I had. How's everybody doing, chat? As I go and look at what we've got here amongst the reaction fodder. We've got some 1630 fun dark money slop, a little bit of the latest internal feud in the right-wing bullshitosphere, where apparently everybody hates Ben Shapiro, which, I mean, mood. Like, but so that looks rather interesting. We've also got something from the Young Turfs. Mark Levin, who is a name I'm not actually familiar with, praises cancel culture and gets wrecked in return. And okay, New Dem instantly obliterates MAGA. I love, see, I mean, with David Pac-Man's dark money funded slot machine, it's just really remarkable how useless the video titles are. Like, you cannot actually just from the title tell what any of this shit is about. Because it's all stuff like, it's all just exactly like this. New Dem instantly obliterates MAGA. According to David Pac-Man, like, MAGA has been obliterated so many times, it's like died more times than fucking Kenny on South Park. So let's find out how they've been obliterated this time. Because they don't seem as obliterated as all that, actually, at the moment.
Well, they finally swore in at Alita Grijalva as the newest member of the House of Representatives, a Democrat, and we didn't even have time for this yesterday because it was such a packed show, but she really did a number on these Republicans.
Oh, okay. So when we say obliterate, we mean she criticizes.
They blocked her for 50 days, and she quickly made them regret it. Here is the moment where she was sworn in.
Will Representative-elect Grijalva and members of the Arizona delegation present themselves in the well, and all members will rise.
Someone yelled finally there.
And the representative-elect will raise her right hand.
Okay. I'm not really seeing the obliteration.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion?
Oh, you mean related to, like, land navigation and, like, bushcraft type video things? I mean, see, that would be cool. Like, it would just be really good to have people, like, on YouTube doing informative videos on stuff that you could learn this stuff from, who aren't doing all this fast dog whistling bullshit. I mean, when I started because I started looking for all sorts of videos on it, because when I want to pick up a new skill, I want to get, full on into it. And so I started getting all these recommendations. I click on them, check them out. I was like, Jesus Christ, all these guys are dodgy as hell, except for this one, like, nice, very pleasant seeming English guy. Channel called The Map Reading Company, and he hasn't done anything dodgy that I've seen yet, and he just walks around the Pennines, which is a mountain range that separates Yorkshire and Lancashire in northern England, and explains to you useful things about how to use topographical maps and compasses and stuff, and it's all very pleasant and very nice viewing for with a cup of tea. But other than that, Jesus.
And that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God. I do. Congratulations, you're now a member of the 119th Congress.
All right, so finally, and when given an opportunity to speak...
His hair is strangely off-center.
Congresswoman...
It makes his head look trapezoidal.
Grijalva laying out the absurdity of how long this took, and also laying out the stakes here.
It has been...
Okay, here's where the obliteration is going to come. Like, we're gonna have obliteration. I was promised obliteration. The 1630 front's David Pac-Man would not lie to me, I'm sure.
50 days since the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District elected me to represent them. 50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves. This is an abuse of power.
Okay, still waiting for the obliteration. This actually seems like a fairly mild rebuke, to be honest, under the circumstances.
One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons.
And yet, he was able to do it.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, the obliteration, though, Dave, it's coming, right?
but now she is in.
Yes. We had that within the first 30 seconds.
And she went right in on the Epstein files. I love this.
Just
Like, okay. And I will say, that's, I mean, I think that is an important thing. I also think that probably nothing is going to happen. Like, why does anyone actually think that if there was something in those files that had somehow survived, Pam Bondi and the Shredders and everything, and that had Trump, like, dead to rights, does anyone seriously think that anything is likely to just happen? I mean, people will think less of him, but it's like, the people who think, the people who actually don't like him, which is most people, I don't think they could possibly think less of him. I mean, everybody already just assumes at this point, just because they've been dawdling and doing everything they can to avoid releasing this stuff, that it must, that he's probably in them. And yes, I mean, from what we've seen from some of these releases, he's in them in very compromising ways. But, like, does anyone think that that's not going to bring anything down? This is actually the subject I'm talking about, not related to Epstein. But, though actually I suppose I should mention it, on this video that I'm working on right now related to how on the one hand, it's nice to live in a world where there isn't Dick Cheney, and on the other hand, it actually kind of sucks that he was able to live out his days as a respected elder statesman when, like, he should have been fucking locked up for crimes against humanity and stuff, like Videla, who, by Cheney standards, was a small-timer. And I talk about how it's like, there's this idea, and it's present in a lot of fiction, that, and in real life, too, where if people just saw the reality, if the reality of something was just exposed, then shit would come crashing down. Like, a lot of conspiracism is based on this idea, but a lot of just kind of mainstream, non-conspiracist thought, a lot of people think, this shit'll be exposed and then there'll be no place to hide and something will have to be done. And I don't know how that belief has actually survived the past 15 years, to be honest. Because it's been a decade and a half of one absolutely scandalous revelation after another about powerful people doing extremely criminal shit. Like, I mean, most recently just kind of committing a live stream genocide, for example, which is still fucking going on, though you would not actually be aware of that from watching 1630 Fun's David Pacman. And everybody sees it and everybody's appalled and everybody's disgusted because it's disgusting, and then nothing fucking happens and there are no consequences. Because the institutions are taking care of themselves, and it isn't enough for people in power to be exposed as being a bunch of criminal shits. That, any more than, like, we have cops on film committing murder and planting weapons on the victim, and it still takes fucking rioting in the streets in order to even get them charged with anything. But somehow, the Epstein files are totally going to change that.
This morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged.
I mean, including, like, spending an entire day with one of their victims, apparently.
It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure they'll get right on that. Wow, shit, they've been obliterated.
We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ plus rights, because that's what the American people expect us to do.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything she said there, actually, except for the idea that, you know, a stern tongue lashing is going to lead Congress to suddenly feel inclined to do these things, which I don't even think she probably... I'm not saying she even believes that, but, I mean, David Pacman's fucking video title certainly suggests that either he believes it or he wants, like, his viewers to believe this. Like, what the fuck is in the mind of a Pac-Man viewer? They look at these, like, every single day there's another one. MAGA destroyed! And then the next day, MAGA wrecked! And it's like, wait, they were destroyed one day and then they were wrecked the next day? Like, what kind of pit crew have they got? What, that's some Formula One repair shit right there.
Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files.
Okay. Except that it doesn't... I mean, it's a good thing. I think they should be released. I absolutely think that everybody whose name is in there, just their fucking career needs to be over. I also don't think that's likely to happen, and I think what is much more likely to happen, particularly in the case of, because we know Epstein was not, you know, he wasn't a Koch brother. He was very, he was not partisan, let me put it that way. His files, from what we know about them, what we know about his, like, circle of extremely shonky acquaintances, is that they run the gamut from, like, the center-right to the far-right. Like, the entire political spectrum in the United States. The officially sanctioned political spectrum, anyway. And I can just see people saying... you know, people saying, you know, who would be normal, like, Democrats voting constituencies saying, we're not going to vote for anybody whose name shows up in these files, then the Democrats saying, well, then it's your fault that Trump wins, or some shit. Because they've already done it with genocide. Why the fuck? They already did that. I mean, when they just decided to kill Me Too in order to shove Joe Biden down our fucking throats in 2020... Why would they not? They've done it with genocide. Why are they gonna, like, stop short with Epstein? Meanwhile, it's looking increasingly clear that Epstein was, at the very least, very connected with Israeli intelligence services.
This is not going to go well for Republicans.
Really? Why isn't it? I mean, she said... Oh, because she said the things. If only somebody else had thought of saying things. If somebody had just said things, the Republicans would have just sort of gone away. Why is nobody saying things? Somebody should have said things a long time ago. I had no idea it was that easy.
This is going to backfire on them. And the other thing I liked about
that's not how the word backfire works either.
Congresswoman Grijalva's initial speech is she also touched on just the basic fundamentals of how the United States is supposed to work, and how a lot of those fundamentals are now under threat.
And while we celebrate this moment today, our American promise is under serious threat. Basic freedoms are under attack. Health care premiums are skyrocketing.
No, I wonder, whose idea was it to just kick the fucking disastrous healthcare situation into the long grass and create a system of subsidies for the insurance industry that would allow them to just continue raising their premiums whenever the fuck they wanted, because it doesn't even matter if people can afford them anymore, because the government will kick in funds to cover it if they can't.
Babies are being ripped away from their parents by masked agents. We can and must do better.
Well, okay. I mean, I agree they really ought to do better than that, which is why ICE shouldn't exist. Like,
What is most concerning is not what this
But I mean, why shouldn't I shouldn't downplay this event? She just obliterated. She said that they could do better. She obliterated them. They're gone. There's nothing left of them.
administration has done, but what the majority in this body has failed to do. Hold Trump accountable as a co-equal branch of government that we are.
Well, yeah, that's because the majority in Congress likes what he's doing and thinks he should continue doing it. That's the thing. They don't generally hold people accountable for shit that they like. That's not how accountability works.
You know, there is no one person that can determine the outcome of so many different things, and so it's not about overstating the importance.
It isn't about overstating the importance, because I heard from somebody that she instantly obliterated them.
Of the swearing in of Congresswoman Grijalva. But if we step back a little bit, as you see her swearing in, as you see the discharge petition succeed, as you see 100 Republicans seemingly say, I think I'm going to go with yes, let's do the files, rather than no, let's not do them. As we see all of that stuff come together.
Well, yeah. Okay. And again, good that the fucking files are released. That is absolutely a good thing. I'm actually very curious to read them. I haven't had a chance today. But I like reading these sorts of things when they get released, because you find out all sorts of shit that often does not end up getting covered, and it's just interesting to do name searches and shit. But yeah, but that isn't accountability in itself. We have tons of information. We're like we're drowning in information. A lot of it is information that points out just what fucking criminal fucks we're ruled by. And that doesn't equal accountability for them. They're just fine with it, actually. There's nothing that actually allows us to circumvent the part where we actually fucking hold them accountable and force the issue. I mean, and this is part of what I'm going to be talking about in this video that I've been working on. I've been doing all of the pre-editing of all these clips and things, because I'm comparing like Cheney's demise to that of Jorge Videla, the head of the last junta in Argentina, the U.S. Israeli-backed neo-Nazi dictatorship there, and how he spent his retirement, which was in and out of prison, because occasionally these various right-wing governments decided to try to pardon him and stuff, or give him house arrest, and then courts would say that wasn't on, because people kept on having to go on the streets and say, yeah, I mean, basically telling the institutions, you can sort these fuckers out, or we will. And when you listen to the closing address of Julio Cesar Stracera, the prosecutor who led the trial against the junta, you can very clearly hear from what he says, which I have subtitled in English in this thing, that everybody involved in this is very conscious that they are deciding. They're not so much deciding what's going to happen to Jorge Videla and Macera and Gualtieri and the rest of these assholes. They're deciding whether it's done in an orderly institutional fashion in accordance with, sort of bourgeois notions of procedure and rectitude and stuff, or whether the people just fucking storm the barricades. And that's the thing. They were afraid of the people, and so they decided that the better thing to do, and I'm not saying Stracera wasn't committed to this personally. You can hear in his closing address that he very clearly was committed to this on various levels. I'm not saying that, but clearly the institutions understood that what was at stake for them. They were afraid of what the people who were extremely pissed off in their millions might do. And that's the problem. There's fear, that we might get to the point of, being, doing something whilst pissed off in our millions. But there's not enough of a concrete fear there to actually see concessions start happening. There's no negotiation. It's like just attempts to intimidate us. Just attempts to censor the internet to make it harder for us to communicate with each other and see each other. And all sorts of other shit like that. But that is where accountability will come from, if it comes from anything.
Might be a moment here, and I don't think we're going to get Trump out of office. I don't believe that Trump's...
I thought you just said, but you said that he was obliterated. Where is the obliteration happening? I want to see the obliteration.
Do a single day in jail or prison. I told you that years ago, and so far it's been true, but there's still some time to go. But I don't think that he's going to.
Okay, I mean, and I will say that is a reasonable thing to say. But I mean, to me, you have to follow that up, because this shit is corrosive. When you go through one massive scandal of criminal shit done by powerful people after another, and there are no consequences for anybody involved over and over again, that can be extremely corrosive. It can lead people to just resignation, and that's not good, because then you just see this lowering of standards to the extent where, I mean, at this point the bar is in hell, as I've heard people say. Or it can be turned into a radicalizing moment that leads people to actually start fighting back in a way that can't be ignored. And anyone who's going to make the point that, yeah, this probably isn't going to have any meaningful consequences, institutionally speaking, I think has the responsibility to point out that the unless part of it.
Like this is, it feels as though this is an opportunity to really put the nail in the coffin of Trump as a president who can do anything.
Okay, but as long as he's in the White House, he's a president who can do stuff, because doing stuff is kind of one of the things that comes with the office.
And the Epstein file release, which hopefully will happen, may be combined with, under 12 months from now, Democrats taking control of the House of Representatives. Maybe all...
Did he film this before or after they decided to just end the shutdown in exchange for... Oh, it turns out it wasn't... I said it was in exchange for fuck all. That's not quite right. Because it appears part of the deal that they're being expected to accept involves increased federal restrictions on abortion rights, and a federal hemp ban, too, which is wonderful.
That together is going to be enough to make Trump truly a lame duck. And I don't mean, he's a lame duck in the sense that he can't run again.
Why is it a lame duck, though?
Any president in their second term. But I mean truly a lame duck in that he cannot get a damn thing done for the last 2 years or maybe even 3 years.
Well, the thing is, there's a way to do that. And it doesn't involve, you don't need to release the files for that. It's called, you use the procedural mechanisms that are there. Like, if you look at places where for example, if you look at Chile under Allende, when the opposition was actually quite strong in the Congress and funded by the CIA, and they used every fucking procedural tool that was available under the rules of the National Congress in order to assure that nothing could get done, to just make everything just complete, absolute agony. That nothing the government proposed ever happened, that anytime the government needed to do something that normally other governments had just done as a matter of course, that it would be closed off and everything, and there were constant investigations, and everything was just constantly delayed, and everything came to a grinding halt. And We have mechanisms like that in the rules of procedure of the Senate and the House, too. Every fucking legislature has rules like that. That if you want to use them in order to just make it impossible for somebody to govern, you don't have to have a majority to do it. So they could be doing this all along if they wanted to. And for all they talk about, the unique threat and all that, it's like they clearly do not actually believe it, because they would be doing these things. They would be behaving like the National Party and the Christian Democrats in Chile did when Allende was president. They know the rules of the fucking procedure. They've got people whose entire job is to know those things. They know about unanimous consent and that you can withhold it. They could be doing those things. They could have been doing those things all along. They've just opted not to.
Of his presidency. And the X factor here seems to be that after mostly falling in line with the cult loyalty that Trump has demanded for so long, we finally are seeing Republicans, some of them, say, I'm not with them on this particular issue.
Yeah, and the thing is, on this particular issue is kind of an important phrase here. Because the thing is that this is something that, like, Fash have been freaking out of. I mean, they've been freaking out about it for ages. And so obviously they can't be seen to be the ones withholding the files that their own people have been saying that they should release. But that doesn't translate into them doing anything decent on anything else.
And that is a really, really big deal. Many of us know all too well
about some random guy's biceps, apparently. Okay, didn't need that. Yeah, okay. So, I think we're going to move on to Ben Shapiro, who says his words are being taken out of context. And I'm very interested to know what context his words would be at all decent in. I don't even know which words we're talking about. But one thing we know is
that the solution is people just leaving their houses, which is not...
Okay, that was weird. It was like he finished my sentence except wrong. What we do know is that it's going to be some bullshit. And everyone in the right-wing bullshitosphere right now hates this guy. But he agrees with himself, apparently.
Not what I'm saying. So I want to play the full clip so people can understand what I said, and then I'm happy to explain what I meant. If you want the president to create more affordability in the United States, you need the prices of things to go down.
Wow. Now I understand why people follow this guy. If you want affordability, you need prices to go down.
The way the prices of things go down is with more supply, right? It's very simple.
No, that isn't actually that simple, because the thing is, more supply does not automatically mean anything goes down. Doesn't actually mean, not thing.
Hey, this is why I find it fascinating that there is so much talk these days about H-1B visas. Now, there are many problems with the H-1B visa program. You can make the claim, I think somewhat accurate, that the H-1B visa program is too broad. The H-1B visa program, about 65,000 are offered every year.
Hey, too broad is ridiculous. If you know anything about what the agony of getting a job on a work visa in the U.S., because the companies, your prospective employer actually has to show that they have, in fact, looked for somebody who is a citizen to do the job, and they couldn't find anyone. So, I mean, to say it's too broad, and then on top of that, I mean, you're basically an indentured servant at that point, because if you lose your job and can't find another one within 30 days, another one who will also have to prove that they looked far and wide for a U.S. citizen to fill the position, but they couldn't get one, hey, Riveroon, then you are off status and can be deported. Yeah, it seems like everybody is piling on him. And so we're going to join them.
Enormous number
hey, Adam.
Of people who have been in under H-1B visas before. I asked our sponsors over at Comet to explain this. The project of perplexity.
What the hell is perplexity? What the hell is Comet? I've never heard of any of these things. Is this some AI bullshit? Comet perplexity. It's a personal AI assistant. Fucking hell. So, literally none of this stuff should be taken as accurate, obviously.
H-1B visas are a U.S. immigration program that allows employers to hire foreign workers in specialty occupations that require at least a bachelor's degree or equivalent expertise.
Yeah, I mean, he's just modeling the sort of research skills that lead you to be gullible enough to believe this bullshit. Okay, so his sponsor is an AI slop generator, which is fitting, because he's an organic slop generator. And he's just going to take this stuff and present it as... his voice really is grating.
Around 85,000 new H-1B visas are issued annually.
I think whoever does the sound mixing is deliberately turning up the gain on the high bands to make him painful to listen to.
Total number, including renewals, exceeds 400,000 per year. That means somebody got an H-1B last year, and now they got it renewed for this year as well. So, you're bringing in foreign workers, mainly in tech. Something like 50% of all H-1B visas are coming in the tech industry. They're people who are coming over to work in computer engineering or computer science or something. They're working for Intel, or they're working for Microsoft, or they're working for Google. This has become a point of contention on the right.
I'm glad he explained what tech jobs are.
The usual reasons that the right is concerned about immigration.
So not just racism is what he's saying. What other than racism?
But for economic reasons.
Oh, which is usually just another coded way to do racism, usually.
So, there are lots of reasons to be concerned about legal immigration in the United States. Not just illegal immigration, legal immigration. So,
yeah,
for example,
but mostly they're racism.
Example, if you are bringing in people who are low-skilled, don't have jobs, are going to be dependent on welfare and be more of a net...
Dependent on... Okay, let me... let me just be very clear on this. Nobody who is coming into the U.S. is going to be dependent on welfare because they're not eligible.
On the Treasury, then they are a benefit economically. That would be a reason not to let somebody into the country. Cultural differentiation, a massive reason.
Really? Okay, so okay, we're back to racism. Got it.
Not to let in certain people from certain countries.
Certain people from... I wonder... Ben... I wonder if maybe, you and your ancestors and mine, Ben, we were certain people from certain countries less than a fucking century ago, Ben. Like, fucking listen to yourself.
They might be qualified in computer science, but if they're coming here and they don't like American values...
Like, which ones?
They like terrorist groups, for example.
But again, which ones? I mean, Donald Trump was just meeting with a fucking Al-Qaeda leader in the White House. So you have to be a little bit more specific there.
Shouldn't let them in.
Because, Al-Jolani can come in, apparently.
And he's basic common sense.
And he gets sprayed with Donald Trump's, special, urine-scented cologne. I guess he was marking his territory or something.
You can make the case that there are a lot of people who are being let in who are actively Chinese agents.
Well, I mean, you can... By make the case, he means just sort of suggest it without ever providing evidence.
Infiltrators at our tech companies who are stealing IP.
You don't need to be physically present to be infiltrating the tech companies. The thing about tech, Ben, is you can do that shit remotely. In fact, there is a whole thing that the DPRK does where they will, contact people via Discord, claiming that they're gonna do some sort of remote working thing, which is actually indeed what they're doing. But they need you to buy a laptop, a dedicated laptop, and give them, screen mirroring access to the thing, give them full control over it. and they then use a U.S. IP and fake identification to apply for tech jobs in the U.S. And they do this all from the DPRK. They don't leave. They just do it all from North Korea. You can just do this stuff remotely, Ben. That's how computers work. That's why internet is.
That would be an amazing reason not to let somebody in. However, the case that's being made right now against
it's an amazing reason.
H-1B visas is that H-1B visas are bad economically speaking in general for the American population. Now, in order to make...
Again, remember, in order to get one of these visas, in order for an employer to employ somebody on one of these visas, they have to show that they have actually looked for somebody who is a U.S. citizen who is qualified for the job, and they have to actually document that. And they have to submit all that shit to ICE or CIS. I'm not sure who actually handles the paperwork in that case. It may be Citizenship and Immigration Services in that case. Actually, it probably is. And they can be turned down. Like, there are entire law practices in immigration law that specialize in nothing but trying to win approvals to get in one person that a company desperately needs in order to do a job they can't fill, because USCIS doesn't believe them that there isn't somebody that they could get who's from here. So, okay, cool story, Ben. Keep going.
That case, you have to make the case that they are artificially driving down the price of labor.
But they're not.
Which we can argue about in a second.
No. We really can, because you got to explain. If you make that argument, then you got to explain why they're driving down the price of labor. Are they inherently cheaper? They're coming here. They have the same cost of living, and in many cases a higher cost of living, because they're sending some of that money home to their families. So it is not immediately clear why they would be cheaper. Maybe you could enlighten us, Ben.
And that there are no externalities that are beneficial to bringing them in.
That's literally not what an externality is.
That the country is better...
the point of it... he doesn't know what externalities are. It's so cute. You can't even do neoliberalism right. Externalities are actually bad things. The whole point of them is that you try to take take anything that is a risk or a loss and externalize it, so that the parties to the transaction aren't the ones paying for it. The externalities that are beneficial are not externalities.
Off banning them and using quote-unquote domestically supplied labor than bringing in people on H-1B visas. Now, if we're talking about...
just absolutely not how any of that works.
Pricing of labor, there's no question, obviously, that you bring in more people who are applicants for a job, and the price of the labor goes down. That is a deflationary policy, just in terms of affordability.
So, obviously, what we need to do is, raise the minimum wage. Put it way up there. Actually have it catch up with inflation. Make sure that it is actually equivalent in purchasing power to what it was originally when the first federal minimum wage was enacted. Or actually maybe even higher, just so it would actually be ahead of the cost of living. So maybe that's a thing we should do. If you're worried about wages in this very specific, not at all racist context.
It makes products more affordable. If labor is cheaper, products are more affordable. For the people who don't get those jobs, life is worse. For the broad American public, life is better because the affordability went up. Again, all economic policies have beneficiaries and have people who are harmed by those economic policies. The question is, how widespread are the beneficiaries and how discrete are the people who are being hurt, and vice versa. Now, let's be adults about how we discuss economics when we're going to talk about these big issues.
Oh, okay. So, by which he means, look at the get all of his information from an AI slop bot, from a clanker company that sponsors him, apparently, because that's how adult people discuss policy issues, apparently.
Okay, so here is the case for importing certain types of labor. One, There are, in fact, certain positions in the United States that require a level of expertise that may not be reachable in the numbers that are currently being churned out by American universities.
Which may be something to do with how fucking expensive it is to go to university. So maybe one of the things that we ought to do, because you're worried about this, you're very clearly, legitimately concerned about this, you're totally not doing this for racist reasons, because Ben Shapiro would never do something for racist reasons, obviously. So maybe what we ought to do is stop having higher education be funded by the interesting approach of having insolvent 18-year-olds take on lifelong debt.
That is a shortcoming of our educational system, and it is a problem. And so you can say we should up our game.
Like, whoever does this camera should not film him from that angle, because when they shoot him from that angle, his ear is sort of freestanding, and it makes him look kind of like a Vulcan.
Education, I agree. We should absolutely up our game educationally. But in the meantime,
so like have university education be free at the point of use, perhaps. Just have it fully funded rather than having this tuition debt bullshit. Right, Ben? That's what we're talking about.
If you do not bring in the labor supply, particularly to tech will go find the labor supply. And so what you will end up with is an office that was employing 30 Americans and 3 H-1B visa people. If the costs grow too high, simply moving to another country where they hire 30 Indians and 0 Americans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is just wild hearing him try to make this economic case and then thread this particular needle without acknowledging any of the realities.
Right, this is the problem with the reason companies offshore is not because it's easy or fun to simply move your company somewhere else. It's because the labor cost becomes so prohibitive in the United States.
It isn't that prohibitive in the United States. It's that it's extremely profitable to do it in hyper-exploited populations in the global south. It's not that U.S. labor costs are not fucking prohibitive. The U.S. has ridiculously low wages by the standards of industrialized countries. And long working hours. We get no fucking paid time off in this country. Not guaranteed. Not mandatory. Practically no holidays. Like, the U.S. is... the U.S. is not prohibitive. It's just that it's way more profitable if you can pay your workers less.
The companies move away. And you can try to tariff them back, but all that does is artificially raise the price on Americans. Again, we're talking about...
Oh, wow, okay, so he acknowledges this.
Affordability. There are trade-offs in economics. Autarky comes with the fun feeling that everybody in America is making American product. It comes with the...
Ooh, we're talking some autarky.
Very large downside that your products are economically inefficient, they don't work as well, and you're not globally competitive.
Well, like, who gives a shit if we're globally competitive, though? Like, I literally do not give a fuck if we're globally competitive. I don't, like, what exactly do I, as a worker in this country, have out of the U.S. as an entity being globally competitive? I just want to be able to have a fucking secure, comfortable, dignified fucking existence. Yeah, I mean, all of these people all of these grifters will change their tune if, their money sources suddenly decide it's convenient to take another view. Although the interesting thing about Ben Shapiro is he does seem to have gotten a bit of scruples about the kind of people he's surrounded himself with, because he suddenly realized that all these Nazis he's surrounded with are serious about it.
All policies have trade-offs. It is also better for the American people, broadly speaking, to bring in the best from other countries. Now, how do you determine the best?
Oh, I'm guessing racism is going to come in here.
You can make, again, the case that the H-1B visa program is fatally flawed. It's not bringing in enough of the best. I will point out that many of our best founders in the United States are either immigrants or the children of immigrants?
Oh, our best founders. Like, okay, let's just note that that's a completely different visa. Because when we talk about founders, what we're talking about is capitalists. We're talking about people who, and there are special visas. In the US and other countries, there are visas that exist where the only real requirement is having money. Like, if you have a certain amount of money, and it differs from country to country what it is, then there's just a visa that's there for you to just come into the country and live there. And so people who are founders aren't coming in on H-1Bs to found. They would be going in on investor visas. Because that's what they're doing. They're putting money into a thing and then having workers make the thing.
Who came in on H-1B visas? Or who came in just generally without an H-1B visa?
Well, yeah. I mean, let me just be clear. They may have previously come in the, on an H-1B. But when they're doing the founding, they are actually changing, because an H-1B is an employee visa. And people who are founders, capitalists who put some money into a company and then hire a bunch of people to do the thing that the company is supposed to do, and, grift off of venture capitalists and everything, those people are on a completely different visa. That's not H-1B.
Through other forms of legal immigration. As students. And the reality is that
why won't he just say as investors? Because actually, the thing is, one of the really complicated things, U.S. immigration law is fucking draconian, and it's Kafkaesque. I mean, I've studied comparative immigration law for a fairly long time, and I can tell you, there aren't many places that are quite as draconian and overcomplicated and unpredictable as the U.S. And one of the many agonizing things is when you're trying to change status. So you come in as a student, which is a non-immigrant visa, which means that they're expecting you to go home afterwards, and now you want to work here. Well, that's a whole new application and all sorts of new bullshit. Like, the whole thing, everything about it is designed for just maximum agony.
Our screening procedures should be different, but we need to see specifics on what the screening procedures you're applying are that would allow for there to be, for example, an Elon Musk American citizen creating tens of thousands of jobs.
I'm more interested what screening procedures would have kept his ass out, actually. Because literally, I mean, he didn't create, like, even within the, like, capitalist bullshit mindset where, like, having money means you're creating jobs. No, he didn't, because the jobs were there, the companies were there. All he's ever done is buy into companies, and the companies were never better off for it.
Or the head of Google, Sundar Pichai, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Or the head of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Now you can say that maybe if those people didn't exist, there would be an American who just did that job. But that is now living in the realm of theory.
Well, yes, but you're talking about hypothetical changes to a system, Ben. Like, we're already talking about hypotheticals. It's all hypothetical, except for the stuff that actually happened. But I'm gonna skip ahead. I was really hoping to hear that I wanted to hear him talk about how he was taken out of context, and instead we're talking about some other stuff. I want to hear how people are hating on him.
Reasonable about that? I think, frankly, there's a lot of demagoguery of these issues going on because people don't want to acknowledge the realities of how economics actually works. It's more fun to rail against the idea that there are any shortcomings at all anywhere in the American labor force, or that it's actually good to brain drain other countries, or that we should have the best and brightest from other places come here and engage in our economy.
Which, I mean, those last two things are kind of the same thing. Because if the best and brightest from other countries are coming here, first of all, that indicates that maybe things things kind of suck where they are. Which might have something to do with what, organizations like the IMF require their governments to do in terms of economic policy, for example. But, like, if the best and the brightest are coming here, then they're not there, and that is literally fucking brain drain.
And again, I love Laura Ingraham. I think she's wonderful.
Yeah. Just reminding us how much he sucks.
Laura says, if you go back to the 1950s and 60s, how did we do it then? The answer,
well, the answer is that every single industrial and military competitor in the U.S. in the world was wrecked by World War II, and so the U.S. was basically the only game in town. There literally was no competition for like the first, probably 10 to 15 years after World War II.
There were a lot of foreign-born people who actually were founding some of these companies and were involved in the production of some of our most sophisticated technologies. I mean, she's talking about missile technologies, for example.
Well, I mean, speaking of Nazis.
I mean, it was an ex-Nazi, Werner von Braun.
Ex.
Heading up our rocket program in the United States.
His eyebrows are coming to life. I think they are real caterpillars. I don't know about that in terms of citizenship, but I mean, it is painful, because first of all, you've got to meet the durational residency requirement. Then there's this propaganda exam where you have to just show that you are familiar with what the dominant ideology says is U.S. history, which is really difficult because you have to actually like remember things correctly, but then also completely remember them. Because, like, if you actually know, it's actually much easier to pass that exam if you don't know anything about the U.S. And there's all sorts of vetting and all sorts of bullshit, and there are all sorts of fees. And, I mean, as happened to one comrade who had been leading like pro-Palestinian, anti-genocide protests in the Northeast, you can show up to your last citizenship interview and they just fucking arrest you.
And that's not a defense of Werner von Braun's Nazi associations.
I mean, okay, now he's going to have to qualify that again, because some of his viewers are going to be clicking off, wait, he's not going to defend Werner von Braun's Nazi associations? The man actually used fucking slave labor in a Nazi death camp to do a lot of his development work.
That is a recognition that importation of talent actually matters when you are crafting a dynamic economy. Of course. But it seems that when it comes to affordability, people are more interested, again, in demagoguing the issues than actually talking about solutions.
No, well, and the thing is, Ben would never demagogue the issues. He's going for I mean, this is actually a more complicated grift, because he is demagoguing the issues, but he wants to do it in a way that sounds like halfway, like appealing to somebody who may have actually read a book in their lives.
To the issues. And if you do that, what you'll end up with is a lot of people who are angry about affordability, but get no actual answers that provide affordability.
Yeah, well, yes, because within capitalism, you run into problems. Yes, he has actually. I mean, he's done all these videos where it's like, oh shit, where like, why are groypers? And he realized what groypers are. Like, say, I don't know. I mean, at the very least, he's like pretending that this shocks him, as if he hadn't realized who he was surrounding himself with for his entire fucking career.
When Laura says she's interested in raising American wages, everyone's interested in raising American wages.
Really? If everyone's interested, why is nobody doing it? Like, the way you could actually do that, one of the most effective ways would be to just jack up the minimum wage. Just bring it up in line with the inflation, so that you could actually have a budget that covers rent, food, and maybe even like savings and stuff. If everyone's so interested in bringing wages up, like, are capitalists interested in bringing? I don't think they necessarily are, Ben.
The problem is this: if you raise the American wages and you raise the American prices faster than the wages, then the wages get eaten up by the price increases.
Yeah, we all know, we've been there. That's like literally anyone who's been born after like 1973, this is just their lives.
This is what happened during the Biden administration. You need to.
Well, I mean, it's what's been happening for a lot long. It happened in the fucking, let's see, the Nixon, the Ford, the Carter, the Reagan, the Clinton, the Bush, that was out of order, the Obama, the Trump, the Biden, the Trump. It's been happening for a very long time. And wages have not been keeping up because the floor on wages gets lower every single time. Right now it's underwater.
Two things: increased wages and lowering prices. And the way that you do that is with innovation and with increased supply. That is how that works.
No, that is not how that works. Like, I mean, how? Yeah, okay. How exactly? How exactly does he think that wages work? Like, whose money is that coming out of? Like, is there like a single revenue stream that employers are dividing between wages and operating costs and their own profits? Possibly.
You need both of those things. I can artificially raise the wages in the city of Detroit in 1950 by unionizing the entire workforce and negotiating extraordinarily lucrative contracts. And by 1965, the American auto industry will be getting its lunch eaten by the Japanese.
Yes. Again, I mean, there's a reason that these are not good. Okay. Because by 1965, you know what was going on in Japan? You know what was going on in, like, Western Europe and in Germany in particular? Is they did not have industries that their industries got wrecked. The RAF and the U.S. Air Forces, not the Air Force yet, the Army Air Corps at that point, bombed their entire industrial base into nothingness. So what that meant was, when they were rebuilding it with, Marshall Plan funds and other things, they were getting brand new stuff. They didn't have anything old because it all got wrecked. Whereas in the U.S., where everything survived basically intact, because nobody ever bombed the U.S. Like, nobody had planes that would fly that far. So the U.S. was still largely using an industrial base that was pre-war or wartime. And they were competing with these countries that were rebuilding and having to buy brand new stuff. So, yeah. So like, talking about 1965 Japan is, like, yeah, of course, Detroit, the unions, great deal, lucrative contracts, etc. And yes, by 1965, Japan was actually had rebuilt a fair bit of their industry. And so, therefore, they were suddenly able to compete because they had brand new shit that they were using at that point. Like, this is, like, you gotta have some history with your economics or none of it makes any fucking sense.
You can do this. And there are ways to artificially increase the price of labor. What you end up doing is increasing the price of the product that the labor produces.
Well, unless you also just freeze the prices of the product and just take it out of profits. Like, I mean, he's just talking about that. It's interesting. He does not mention the word profits at all, because the minute you acknowledge that what's actually going on here is that prices are being moved up in order to maintain profits, then this becomes a little bit less of sort of a natural inevitability and more of just how capitalism works, and another reason why maybe we shouldn't be doing it.
And that ends up making that product non-competitive, and then eventually the industry dies.
Well, the industry doesn't die because a product is non-competitive, because that means there are competitors who are actually doing better. But yes, it's true, capitalist competition does end up screwing over workers and ultimately screwing over capitalists. I mean, one of the really, it's kind of an interesting example. If you read Dark Alliance by, Gary, God, what is his name? Dark Alliance, Gary Webb, that's right, I knew it was a W name. And he talks about, like, this, South Central LA crack dealer, Freeway Ricky Ross. And, you know, how he got in on the ground floor of crack, basically. And he talks about how every innovation in it suddenly just got rid of the competitive advantage because because Ricky Ross would start doing things one way, and then everybody started to know that this was the way to do it, and you could actually, and so suddenly people were able to compete with him on price. And, you know, each, like, you know, kind of process innovation that he came up with in order to continue to sell crack profitably, that was being supplied to him by CIA cutouts, ended up getting adopted, and eventually there was no competitive advantage, and so the only way that he was able to stay ahead was actually to get out of retail altogether. I mean, and it is a very good example of something, you know, like Marx talks about this in Capital, because every innovation will eventually become universal, and then there's no more advantage from it. And when there's no more advantage from it, it's no longer going to be profitable, and you have to come up with something else. And again, this is why maybe this system sucks, kinda.
Short-term thinking here is the enemy of actual economic health, robust economic health in the long term, which requires
robust economic health, even
innovation and malleability of labor supply.
Malleability of labor supply. That's cute. What that means is the ability to just sort of fire people and kick them out on their asses at a moment's notice.
And movability of labor is a big thing here. And again, none of this is to argue that we should have free, unfettered immigration, or the United States is just in economic form.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're trying to argue against, you know, bringing down wages through immigration, then free, unfettered immigration is the way to go. Just, like, get rid of the immigration restrictions, because that is what makes non-citizen labor cheaper. Because they're more disposable, because they're in a more precarious situation, because their bosses can just call ICE and get them sent off to some camp someplace if they start talking union. So if you actually care about bringing up wages, get rid of ICE, get rid of immigration restrictions, and spend all that money on making sure workers get treated right. But what he really cares about is profits, because, like, I mean, just fucking look.
It started this conversation by acknowledging full-scale the H-1B visa program may be letting in too many people, it may be letting in the wrong people, but the argument that is being made against the H-1B visa is an argument that proves too much, as we used to say in law school. It is too broad an argument.
Well, of course. I mean, guys like this, their entire existence, the whole reason that they get paid to do their, like, very mid propaganda is to just obscure the possibility that the owner is the one that is actually why we can't have nice things.
To simply shut our borders. And again, if what we are worried about is, quote-unquote, the price of labor in the United States...
which is interesting, and that is an interesting way of putting it, because what he means is our incomes. Like most people's fucking incomes. Our incomes are the price of labor.
And we are saying that we need higher wages, then we probably should go all the way and just ban tech.
Well, we could just raise the minimum wage, though.
I mean, these arguments, these are not good arguments. Yep.
I mean, yeah, I agree. That was not a very good argument. Like, okay, so to raise wages, we ban tech. Like, I feel like there are possibly solutions that you could consider before you go to that one.
Argument that economic health comes, for example, from artificially increasing the price of labor by restricting supply.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if this is exactly how the system works, and that it's simply impossible to have any kind of happy equilibrium where everybody's got everything they need and nobody's, like, constantly worried about, you know, being homeless from one day to the next, if you've also got a system that is based on profits. that is based on, giving a handful of rich ghouls a percentage of the work that they don't do.
That applies just as much to tech developments themselves, to robotics, for example, as it does to importation of labor. If you want to maintain manufacturing jobs in Ohio, and that's like the only thing you care about, is increasing...
What manufacturing jobs in Ohio? I'm in Ohio. Like, the manufacturing jobs went a long time ago.
The actual wage paid for manufacturing...
I mean, I guess there's Norca Futons. I mean, Norca is Akron backwards because they're based in Akron. And let me just say, having spent a weekend in Akron so that you don't have to, there's really, unless you just have friends or family there that you want to visit, I really don't see any reason to visit Akron.
In Ohio, you probably should ban all robots.
You don't even need to go there for the futons. You can get them other places.
Because if you take a look at where all those manufacturing jobs went in the United States, manufacturing productivity did not go down in the United States. It has increased since NAFTA in the United States.
That's not what productivity means. Productivity is the amount of output per worker per unit of time. That doesn't mean that there's suddenly a whole lot more. That doesn't mean that the amount of production, the actual just raw volume of production went up. It means that workers are churning out more for less money in less time.
The number of jobs went down, not because they were shipped to Mexico, but because robots are doing a lot of those jobs.
My take on what about Vietnam?
Now, you can ban the robots. You can. It'll just make you globally and domestically non-competitive and make everybody broad spectrum poor.
What is broad spectrum poor? Like, is there, as opposed to what? What's narrow spectrum poor? Oh, yeah, I mean, he's from Northern Ohio, too, so I'm sure he knows from Norca Futons. I'm sure he's been kicked off of many of them.
Because, again, it's not just about the amount of money in your pocket. It's about what you can buy with that money. If the price of all the goods goes up and your wage goes up, but the price is going up faster and you have worse products, you don't have a better life. And that's...
Well, I mean, if that is the entirety of how you're measuring your quality of life, then I feel like, I mean, what's impoverished is your vision. Okay. I mean, I don't really pay a huge amount of attention to modern Vietnam. I did pay attention to, like, during the first years of the pandemic, where they were just completely showing the West up in terms of their response. They were demonstrating exactly what we needed to be doing, and if we had been doing what they were doing, there would be no COVID right now. COVID was and is beatable, and they showed exactly how to do it. So, I mean, there are things, I've heard good things. I don't really pay a huge amount of attention to Vietnam. I know, I mean, if you Non-Compete and Luna Oi, who are both based in Vietnam, though he's, I think, from North Carolina, they, actually, I think EJ's actually a they now that I think of it. But anyway, they're from North Carolina originally, I believe. But both of them talk quite a lot about, like, life in Vietnam and how the country operates and stuff like that. But, I mean, so I really admired their COVID response, and I wish that we would do something similar. But other than that, I really don't pay enough attention to really have an informed opinion. Hola, Lyric. Okay, yeah, I kind of figured if you're watching, like, LeftTube and you're interested in Vietnam, there's basically no way you wouldn't have noticed that. I mean, they're quite informative, I thought. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious about the place. I've heard enough good things that I wouldn't mind checking it out. Oh, nothing to be sorry about. Nothing to be sorry about. It's an interesting subject, and I mean, their response honestly was a model for all of us, and it's a model that could still be used. It's not too late. because there's always the next infection to prevent. We could actually still fucking beat this thing, and if we learn from them, we could do it. We would have to just do a version that is from below, because it's very clear the ruling class one is just to pretend that it's not happening. So actually, I mean, an opportunity to, like, point that out is never wasted time. It's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked it, and nothing to be sorry about. Though I do notice it is time to wrap up. As I said, I won't be on in the afternoon for the hyperpolyglotting stream, because I will be out in the woods doing, hopefully, very very successful orienteering, and not getting, like, surrounded by dense, thorny, thickety things that are digging into every bit of my skin. So I won't be doing that in the afternoon, but I will be back tomorrow night at 11:30 p.m., and I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a good night.